if you've been at your business for about a year and you think you've got some right people in the right seats on the bus and they're doing the right things without your guidance, if you still feel like you can't leave, you either have a control issue problem or you have a systems problem. So you need to, first of all, decide, is the problem actually you because you have control issues and you can't trust your team? And if that's the case, you need to readjust your thinking because you're never going to scale. All you're going to do is live in the job that you've created. And if that's all you want and you don't really truly want to scale, more power to you. I'm not throwing shade on that at all because I believe there's a space in the world for that, for people who just, at a smaller scale, they just want to have some freedom. They want to feel needed. They want to feel like that they can manage their team themselves and they're comfortable there and they feel like they make enough money that they're happy and they're satisfied. For me, it's not about that. For me, it's about... All right, welcome back to the Monster Mindset, guys. Today we're going to talk about systems and what an actual system is and how do you actually see if a system is working or not. If you think you have systems, there's a true test that you can follow that will tell you whether your systems are actually working or not. This is something that I figured out, honestly, by getting burnt out at one point. And I'm going to tell you what that is. There's all kinds of systems. There's systems for sales. There's systems for fulfillment. There's systems for reporting. There's systems for customer follow-up. There's systems for accounting. And all of those things need to become true systems. And the truth of the system is that it's a system when something no longer lives in anyone's head, right? If you've got a leader in a certain department, but the department depends on that person, or in most cases, if the business depends on you, you don't have a system. You've got duct tape holding things together and key people that if you had to replace them or if they left or something happened to them, you would be in trouble without them. That's not a system. That's a good team of people maybe, but it's definitely not a system. One of the things experience that I personally had is I had been grinding on my business when I first started Bartlett Roofing, and I had been working my tail off and trying to figure out do I have systems? Is this going to work? Could it work without me? And here was the true test. I reached the point where I was burnt out and was like, it doesn't matter. I have to just take a vacation. I've got to take 4 or 5 days and just disappear from this office, maybe a week, and just be like, hey guys, you've got it. Me taking that time and letting them know, hey guys, you've got it. That was my first systems check. That was my way of saying, do I have the right people in the bus, in the right seat, able to move this thing forward without me? And it's a good thing to do. It's something that you should do every year, is disappear for a week. At this point, I could disappear for months if I needed to or wanted to, right? I wouldn't want to because I'd probably get bored unless I was starting another company or something. But the reality is that I could disappear at this point and this company could just continue going without me. It could even grow without me at this point. I've got a great team of people, a great set of leaders, but I've also got great systems. And so if we lost one of those key people, we would be able to replace them. Why? Because we know what we need for every role. And we have bench depth in most of our roles. We have somebody that could step up if they needed to. Maybe not as good as the person that may be in the top tier roles, but we do have people that could step up into the roles to fill them. And the way I found out how to do that was leaving my business for a week and leaving it in the hands of my team. So when I came back, I could find out what broke. It was an interesting test, actually. It was almost unintentional, but I arrived at that conclusion because I was like, I have to have a break. I have been working an ungodly amount of hours trying to figure out the systems, the processes, make sure that everything's delegated to the right people so that I don't have to do sales. I don't have to do accounting. I don't have to do production. I don't have to guide people to do the right thing. I've empowered people, I felt at that time, enough to where they could actually do the job. And me taking off for a week was going to be real eye-opening. And that's what I did. And it was real eye-opening. What fell apart while I was gone? What didn't work while I was gone? And when I came back from that week, I learned some things. And so if you've been at your business for about a year and you think you've got some right people in the right seats on the bus and they're doing the right things without your guidance, If you still feel like you can't leave, you either have a control issue problem or you have a systems problem. So you need to, first of all, decide, is the problem actually you because you have control issues and you can't trust your team? And if that's the case, you need to readjust your thinking because you're never going to scale. All you're going to do is live in the job that you've created. And you know what? Hey, there's a lot of people that that's all they actually want. They want to have the pride of ownership of their own business. They want to have the need to feel needed, right? They want to feel like that they're essential as a human being. And if that's all you want and you don't really truly want to scale, more power to you. I'm not throwing shade on that at all because I believe there's a space in the world for that, for people who just, at a smaller scale, they just want to have some freedom. They want to feel needed. They want to feel like that they can manage their team themselves and they're comfortable there and they feel like they make enough money that they're happy and they're satisfied. For me, it's not about that. For me, it's about creating something that is bigger than me. It's about providing opportunity beyond what I could personally provide. It's about reaching more customers than I could personally reach with a small team. It's about giving people a place to work where they enjoy working. It's about giving a great service to our customers, right? And if I can do that and scale that, then I feel better about who I am and what I'm doing because I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the results, the financial results, the results of seeing people grow. Like that's super satisfying. And if that's you, then let go of control. Learn to trust your team. And the way you're going to get there is by creating great systems. So how do you go about creating systems? My personal belief is that you do it until you know the job. At some level, you have to know the job for basically everything that anybody's doing in your company. Early on, you should probably be making collection calls for late paying customers. You should obviously have been doing sales. It's something I've talked about many times. If you haven't started your company by doing sales yourself, you're probably not ever going to be successful. You got to be able to be a salesperson. You got to be able to sell your customers and be able to teach people how to sell customers. You got to be able to manage a team of salespeople as a sales manager in order to be able to teach a person to be able to be a great sales manager and to be able to create a system around how sales management should be. You got to do the fulfillment and the production. You got to know how to do the job itself so you know what to expect out of the team or out of the team that you've created, right? And you not only have to teach them that, but you have to document it. That's where your KPIs come in, your key performance indicators, right? What is the expectation of the job? And those things need to be deep. They need to be, here's how you fulfill, right? And you document the process. It's not just the KPIs, but it's the actual documentation of a process down to the point of it's like you specifically describe every single step. And over time, that evolves, and it should evolve rapidly if you're ready to grow. For me, it started out as, all right, well, I've got a contract and I'll take a picture of that and email to you. And then I got duplicate contracts. And then I, moved to having, forms on an iPad that people could sign so we could automatically send stuff off. And it started with a manila folder where we kept the contracts in and jobs written on a whiteboard of what we needed to fulfill for production, to Excel spreadsheets, not Excel, but Google Sheets. And from there it went to a CRM. And then from there it went to multiple different tools. We had, pinning and mapping tools to map, salespeople activity. We had CRM to do fulfillment. We have accounting systems to do, book work, QuickBooks for most people early on. If you're in construction later on, you probably want to switch over to Sage. But it's documenting every step of the way. If you don't have a documented process, if you haven't created an actual system that somebody else could pick up and say, even if they're not the right person for the job, if they can't pick up a document and understand the steps that they need to go to in order to successfully fulfill the completion of any job in your company, what you have is duct tape. You have something that relies on you and relies on people. So what are your KPIs? What do you expect out of people in their daily performance? But then how is that job documented? How is that process documented? What exactly are you expecting out of that person in that role? And if you have clarity on that, that's now creating a system. Because in worst case scenario, if somebody leaves and you're in a pinch, you could jump in and be like, okay, what were they doing? And how do I now do it to fill in the gap temporarily until I find somebody else that can? That's creating a system. KPIs, a documented job, and then stack on the back of that your reporting so that you can have accountability. Now you've got something to really work with. Those three things together are what make a system. And with your key members of your team, that reporting is extremely important. They should be working on and refining their own KPIs or the KPIs of the people on their teams. They should be documenting their systems as they evolve over time if you've got the right person in the right seat on the bus. And then you should be paying close attention to the reporting. This is where you find your accountability. This is where you see how your business is doing. And if you don't have clear reporting, pay very, very close attention to that and do whatever you've got to do to make sure you get it right. In our case, at this point, we are actually doing vibe-coded apps with daily CSV uploads to get the kind of depth of reporting that we need. Vibe coding is really interesting if you haven't gotten into it. It's very, very interesting. I'm doing a lot of work there right now. But that reporting can be as simple as pulling a CSV report, dumping it into a vibe-coded app to give you a visual and clear accountability for everything that's happening in your company. And I'll tell you, that has made a world of difference for our company. After, going on 12 years, we are finally at the point where I feel like that our reporting is where we need it to be. And we've been working on it for 2 or 3 years at least. I mean, I was working off of reports that are built into the CRMs and built into accounting and built into sales apps before, but not the depth of reporting that I wanted. I didn't have enough accountability. I didn't have enough transparency to the activity of everybody on my team. And now we're truly getting that. It's very powerful. So make sure that as the owner, if you've gotten yourself to a point where you can work on strategy, that this is one of the first things that you work on. Because what is the value of this? Before, everything's living in people's heads and you don't have any consistency because you don't know what to keep them accountable to because there's no transparency and there's no reportability for the activity. After you have clear accountability, you can open up a web page and it tells you this person did this yesterday. This person did this last week, last month, last quarter, last year. Right? You get that transparency of the activity and it makes a huge difference because very quickly you're able to identify, hey, I've got the wrong person in the bus right now. Like this guy over in production, he is allowing the crew to get away with murder over here. They are screwing up on 20% of our jobs. That is unacceptable. We need to retrain this person, put them on a performance improvement plan, make sure they have buy-in or get rid of them, one or the other. Right? That transparency is extremely important. Maybe it's just the crew that needs to go if it's happening across multiple, people who are managing those crews. Maybe the installer, if you're in the home services business, maybe they need to go because they're just sloppy. They do 2 things too fast. They don't do clean work and customers are calling you back. Get transparency. On your sales team, you're going to be able to predict whether or not somebody's going to be here in 30 days or not if you're paying attention to the reporting. What are the leading indicators? How many opportunities are they getting? Of those opportunities, how many of them are converting into an actual sales conversation? And of the sales conversations, how many of those are actually converting into a deal? If you don't know that, then you are going to struggle. And take it from me. We struggled a lot with this stuff. We have struggled a lot with getting this transparency. I hired a full-time person to try to work on accountability systems and transparency for the company. And honestly, just within the last year is when we finally got it truly dialed in. And that is thanks to the whole vibe coding thing. Man, we've been using Claude like crazy. If you're not using Claude to create systems in your business, and you're a business owner and you're in a strategic position and not in an implementing position, if you're able to work on the business instead of in the business, you should be spending some time learning about these systems that work and how to create them. It's extremely powerful. I can't recommend it highly enough. So early systems, they're going to be scrappy. They're evolving. You're going to move from whiteboards, spreadsheets, but move into tools, and from your tools, move into reporting. The difference it'll make is, worth its weight in gold. So what's a mature system look like? A mature system has clear workflows, clear ownership, clear metrics, and clear reporting. So clear workflow. What are the steps that you go through? Clear ownership. Who is the person that's responsible for every single step? It shouldn't be this department's responsible for it. It should be on this job, in this role, this person is responsible to do this thing, until you have multiple people doing the same thing. And now you've got a department doing it, like an estimating department, a collections department, an invoicing department, inspections, like all the different things should be very clearly on one person's head. They need to understand what they are responsible for. And you need to make sure that they're going to be held accountable for that. And that's where that ownership moves into metrics. What are their metrics? How well are they doing it? How fast are they able to do it? How many can they do per day? How many can they do per week? And how can you hold them accountable to that? That's the reporting and the metrics. You get that right, your business can thrive. You can actually do something that's impactful because your strategy now becomes reality. And that is ultimately the goal. Your system is going to create freedom for you. It enables you to delegate, it enables you to trust, and it enables you to scale. And that's important because, and by the way, delegating, if done correctly, isn't do this task for me. Delegating is now you own this part of the system. You own this part of the process. If it fails, it's because you are failing. It's not, hey, process this one job for me and I'll tell you when I need you to process the next one. It's when any job gets to this point, you own it from this point to this point. Failure in this area to move fast enough, to be done well enough, to be done in a way that's reportable and clean and predictable and where the customer's happy and the team is happy. If any of that fails, it's on you. That's what you need to delegate. Not tasks. You need to delegate responsibilities. Make sure your responsibilities are clearly defined, the systems are documented, the KPIs are there, the expectations are there, the measurability is there, and then delegate the heck out of it. Never do it again. Just make sure that you're at the point where you can pay attention to the metrics, understand who's responsible, and whether or not they were successful via the metrics that you've created, the reporting that you've created. This will enable you to scale. That's the key. And eventually, if you do that over and over and over again, your company's growing and growing and growing, and you have evolution that needs to happen as a human being. You need to change as who you are and how you operate, because companies at different sizes require leaders with different skills. And so you're going to have to learn the skills as you go. But doing that's going to enable you to actually scale. It's going to move you from chaos to a structured business, and you're going to learn over and over again through failure. So don't be afraid to fail. Create a system. If it doesn't work, adjust. If it fails, no big deal. You just tweak the system. So the challenge for the day is this. If a key person leaves, or they're sick even for the week, what breaks? If you leave, and you're gone for 2 weeks or a month, what breaks? That's your missing system. If you can't disappear, or one of the people on your team can't disappear and have everybody else be able to pick it up, that's your broken system. So if you're running a business right now, the challenge of the day is this. Imagine that you or one of your key people is no longer with you. They quit, they get hurt, whatever it is, they're gone for a month, 2 months, 3 months. Can you immediately continue to operate in the way that you were before? If you can't, there's a system you need to create. Identify 1, 2, 3, heck, 10 systems that need work. Focus on the most important one, knock it out, get it done, move on to the next. Figure out the systems, and you're going to figure out how to scale. That's the monster mindset of the day. Thanks for being here. Make sure you like and subscribe. Share it around. Appreciate it.